Welcome back. All right, I want to do a career video today. Yep, Guy Carbonneau, and I want to wear a sweater before it gets too hot for me to be able to wear sweaters while I'm doing videos. So, Guy Carbonneau was drafted 44th overall in 1979, and he's a defensive forward. We know this. What's interesting is he played during an era where defense, good luck. Basically, you've got Gretzky skating up and down the ice, and it's Carbonneau's job to try to stop him. When they play against Pittsburgh, you got Lemieux. Whoever the toughest opponent was, that's who Carbonneau's assignment was for the night. So it's amazing he lasted as long as he did. And it's amazing that he didn't get suspended. He didn't take a bunch of penalties with what he was doing out there. And he's part of a really, really deep draft class from 1979. Of course, that draft class being two draft classes for the price of one, because Ken Linsman got the draft age lowered that year. So in 80-81, Carbonneau makes his debut. It's just a cup of coffee with the Montreal Canadiens, plays 2 games, has 1 assist. 81-82, he did not play for the Montreal Canadiens. So again, slowly brought along, but it worked. 82-83, plays 77 games, 18 goals, 29 assists, 47 points. Pretty strong rookie season. 3 games in the playoffs, no points there. And I mean strong rookie season because he's a defensive forward. Defense first, all the way. And then in 83-84, plays 78 games, 24 goals, 30 assists, 54 points. In the playoffs, he had 4 goals, 3 assists, 7 points in 15 games. The offense from Carbonneau was good. Even by 80 standards, offensively, he was good. It's the defensive side of things where he was really good. But keep in mind that 82-83, 83-84, Bob Gainey. Bob Gainey's the man. At that point in time, he's the best defensive forward in the game. I always thought it was unfair they went from Gainey to Carbonneau. I thought that was just completely unfair. That's part of the reason why I'm a big Nick Suzuki booster. I feel like the potential is there for Suzuki to win a Selke trophy. I'd like to see it at some point. Feels like Montreal Canadiens forward hasn't won the Selke in a long time. I haven't looked that up, but it feels like it hasn't happened in a very long time, maybe since Carbonneau. So, 84-85, get there first. 79 games, 23 goals, 34 assists, 57 points. Totals are good. In the playoffs, 12 games, 4 goals, 3 assists, 7 points. And he's 5th in Selke voting. So now he's starting to get attention as being one of the better defensive forwards in the game. Sometimes it takes him a while, especially back then. You didn't have an internet. You didn't have, all these games on at the same time, and you could watch all the hockey. You didn't have that. It was the 80s. Didn't really have that. 85-86, 80 games, 20 goals, 36 assists, 56 points. Offensively, he's remarkably, reliable. In the playoffs, 20 games, 7 goals, 5 assists, 12 points. Stanley Cup, the first of 3 cups that Carbonneau would win in his career, and he was 3rd in Selke voting that year. So he's a finalist for the Selke. 86-87, 79 games, 18 goals, 27 assists, 45 points in the playoffs. Montreal goes far, not as far. They don't go to the final, but he plays 17 games that year, 3 goals, 8 assists, 11 points, and Carbonneau finishes 2nd in the Selke voting. So he's that close. He would get over the hump the following year. 87-88, plays 80 games, 17 goals, 21 assists, 38 points. In the playoffs, he adds 4 assists in 11 games, and he wins his first Selke trophy. So for Carbonneau, pretty big deal right there, And again, you're going from Bob Gainey being the best defensive forward in the game to Guy Carbonneau being the best defensive forward in the game. Just not fair. 88-89, 79 games played. His points totals get a lot better. 26 goals, 30 assists for 56 points. The 26 goals being the highest goal totally recorded in a season. In the playoffs, 21 games, 4 goals, 5 assists, 9 points. Montreal and Calgary were the top 2 teams in the regular season. They met in the Stanley Cup final. It was great. Calgary ends up winning their first and to date only Stanley Cup in the Montreal Forum. And they walked out to tell about it. But Carbonneau wins the Selke that year as well. 89-90, 68 games played, 19 goals, 36 assists, 55 points. In terms of points per game, that's his best season right there. In the playoffs, 11 games, 2 goals, 3 assists, 5 points. He finished 2nd in Selke voting that year. I want to say it was Dirk Graham that beat him that year. But 90-91, he has 78 games, 20 goals, 24 assists, 44 points. In the playoffs, 13 games, 1 goal, 5 assists, 6 points. He was 4th in Selke voting that year. So we're getting into an era where, Montreal, I won't say their fans were spoiled during this era, but they were spoiled during that era. If you didn't win a Stanley Cup over 3 or 4 years, it might be time to change things up. So 91-92, plays 78 games for Montreal, 18 goals, 21 assists, 39 points. In the playoffs, 11 games, 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 points, and he wins the Selke trophy. Then 92-93, 61 games, the offense drops way off. 4 goals to go with 13 assists for 17 points. In the playoffs, he adds 3 goals, 3 assists for 6 points in 20 games, and most importantly, wins the Stanley Cup. So he raised his game in the playoffs. The defense is still there, and the Stanley Cup was Montreal's again. 93-94, 79 games played, 14 goals, 24 assists, 38 points. In the playoffs, he adds a goal and 3 assists for 4 points in 7 games. He was 4th in Selke voting. But in 94, Montreal's management starting to make some interesting decisions that don't work out all that well. And eventually, of course, we know Patrick Roy is going to end up in Colorado. But the decision to trade Guy Carbonneau, bewildering. So August 19th, he was traded to the St. Louis Blues in exchange for Jim Montgomery. Yes, that Jim Montgomery, who is currently the coach of the Boston Bruins and was the coach of the Dallas Stars. But he's traded to St. Louis, and that 1 year in St. Louis, it's a lockout-shortened 48-game season. He plays 42 of those games, has 5 goals, 11 assists, 16 points. In the playoffs, a goal and 2 assists for 3 points. Now, the interesting thing with Carbonneau is he proves a theory I've always had, a belief I've always had. You can be all offense and no defense for a while at the NHL level, but when your offensive numbers drop off a bit, you're probably out of the league. You can be a great defensive forward that's also got some good offensive numbers, and if that offense fades, but you can still play really well defensively, you're still going to have a job in the National Hockey League. And so Guy Carbonneau, even though the offense at this point isn't what it was, he's still going to have a job in the NHL because he's one of the best defensive forwards in the game. So after that 1 year in St. Louis, he's traded October 2nd, so as we're getting ready for the following season, to Dallas in exchange for Paul Broughton. That is the second time he's traded for a forward that would have people scratching their heads and going, why would that be the return? Because again, if you're under the age of, I would say under the age of 30, 35, you may not know who Paul Broughton is. You may not have been aware that Jim Montgomery played in the National Hockey League. But yeah, Guy Carbonneau goes to Dallas, and it worked out pretty well for Dallas. That first year, 95-96, 71 games, 8 goals, 15 assists, 23 points. He's not getting the Selke votes anymore, but he's still playing really well defensively. 96-97, 73 games, 5 goals, 16 assists, 21 points. In the playoffs, he adds an assist in 7 games. 97-98, 77 games for Dallas, 7 goals, 17 assists, 24 points. And now Dallas is in that range of contendership, right? They're right in that contender conversation. 16 games, 3 goals, 1 assist, 4 points. Believe they lost that year in the playoffs to Detroit. 98-99, 74 games, 4 goals, 12 assists, 16 points. But in the playoffs, Carbonneau brings his A game. 17 goals, 2 goals, 4 assists, 6 points. They win a Stanley Cup with Guy Carbonneau. Not only that, but the final game played at the Montreal Forum, it was the Dallas Stars that played against Montreal. Guy Carbonneau took the opening face-off for that final game at the Forum. It was the last chance in the Forum for them to chant Guy, which they did for Carbonneau, as they had previously done for Guy Lafleur during his career. So 99-2000, he plays 69 games. He reaches double digits in goals. He has 10 goals, 6 assists, 16 points. In the playoffs, 23 games, 2 goals, 4 assists, 6 points. Dallas gets all the way to the final. They couldn't overcome the New Jersey Devils in what was a very competitive, very solid final. And that year, Carbonneau finished 9th in Selke voting. He got Selke votes that year. So he ends up with 1,318 games played in his career, which is 62nd overall all-time. 260 goals, 403 assists for 663 points. Not bad for a guy who's known primarily for defense. In the playoffs, 231 games played. That's a lot. 38 goals, 55 assists, 93 points. Again, you look at the points per game, pretty solid for a playoff run for a player known for their defense. He retired June 29th of 2000, so right after that Stanley Cup Finals done. He was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 2019, and it had been a conversation after he'd retired. Was he good enough to be in the Hall of Fame? Do 3 Selkes get you in there, along with stats offensively that wouldn't qualify him for the Hall of Fame? But he also had those 3 Stanley Cups, and he played kind of a key role in all 3 of those Stanley Cup wins. His veteran leadership in Dallas can't be overstated. Dallas unveiled a statue of Modano. I don't know if Carbonneau doesn't play with Dallas in 98-99. I don't know if they win that cup. Maybe we don't have a Modano statue necessarily if they don't have that 1999 Stanley Cup. Definitely helps. But at any rate, yeah, solid player who then went on and, of course, had a career as a coach and a manager and all that. But I wanted to focus on the playing career today. So there you go. Playing career, Guy Carbonneau. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe in the event you've not done so already. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.